A judge for the United States District Court for the Eastern District of Virginia has just ruled that Google is, in fact, a monopoly that is violating antitrust laws. And if you're keeping track at home, this is kind of nuts because this is literally the second time a judge has ruled that Google is an illegal monopoly that needs to be punished this last year. This last summer, at the end of this last summer, that happened again with a completely different lawsuit filed by the Department of Justice along with a bunch of states against Google. That particular lawsuit related to search engine monopoly and Google basically manipulating the market, paying other companies to keep itself a monopoly and violating the Sherman Antitrust Act. That particular lawsuit is already in the remedies phase right now, with a ruling on those remedies due sometime this summer by sometime in August, it sounds like. A lot of the proposed remedies around that lawsuit include breaking up Google into several little baby Googles. Little mini Googles running around, including breaking off the Chrome division. Sorry, I get this correct here. Selling Chrome off to a completely different entity that has nothing to do with Google. That's a real thing, which it appears like Google is kind of preparing for. They're building up a Friends of Chrome Foundation in collaboration with a few other companies and the Linux Foundation. So I don't know what's going to happen there. But there's also talk about breaking off Android into a separate company because of that antitrust suit. Now, this new antitrust suit, I'm going to bring this up here, is specifically regarding advertising, right? Because Google's an advertising company. That's where they make the bulk of their cash, is in advertising. And this one specifically says that Google has monopolized 3 digital advertising technology markets in violation of Section 2 of the Sherman Act and has tied its products in these markets together in violation of Sections 1 and 2 of the Sherman Act. I'm just going to read just one little bit here from right about the middle of the ruling, which came out yesterday, April 17th. With the benefit of a 3-week bench trial, because the trial was 3 weeks long, and extensive post-trial filings, the court finds that the plaintiffs, and this is interesting here, because there were multiple things alleged by the plaintiffs, which included the Department of Justice and a whole bunch of states. I can't remember how many states were involved here. There was 17 states, something along those lines. It was 17 different states in the United States filed who were part of this lawsuit against Google. They alleged multiple things, half of which the court threw out and found in favor of Google, but not the antitrust monopoly stuff. For that stuff, they're like, yeah, Google's totally a monopoly. So here we go. The court finds that the plaintiffs have failed to prove that there is a relevant market for open web display advertiser ad networks, but have proven that Google has violated Section 2 of the Sherman Act by willfully acquiring and maintaining monopoly power in the open web display publisher ad server market and the open web display ad exchange market, and has unlawfully tied its publisher ad server and ad exchange in violation of Sections 1 and 2 of the Sherman Act. Having found Google liable, the court will set a briefing schedule and hearing date to determine the appropriate remedies for these antitrust violations. Now, we've been down this road before. We've seen companies get slapped on the hand with antitrust violations. One of the most famous ones in the big tech space was Microsoft, for anti-competitive web browser tie-ins, right? Because they tied in and made it hard to uninstall Internet Explorer, and there was a big antitrust lawsuit around that, and Microsoft lost that one. Well, you may have noticed that Microsoft did not get broken up into a bunch of mini Microsofts, right? They had some fines, a little slap on the wrist, everyone moved on, more or less. So what's going to happen here? We've now got two very different lawsuits, both of which have been ruled by judges that Google is a monopoly and has engaged in illegal antitrust actions, and that those actions require a specific remedy. And the plaintiffs are pushing forward for a remedy that includes, but is not limited to, breaking Google up into a bunch of mini Googles. So we've got two separate suits alleging this right now. So then the question becomes, what is the government likely to push for at the very end stage of this, right? Because let's assume for a moment that Google just can't gain any traction on an appeal, right? They just can't gain traction there. They're going to try. Of course they're going to try. They'd be stupid not to try. So let's say that they can't gain traction and or they lose on appeal. Considering the amount of evidence, considering they've now been found to be a monopoly in two completely separate trials on two completely separate issues, the odds of Google winning across the board on appeals seems increasingly unlikely. So what happens when push comes to shove at the end of the day, when Google is pushing against the US government, trying to get them to not break them up? What is the government, who is essentially the plaintiff, because both of these cases are brought by the Department of Justice underneath Attorney General Pam Bondi. So where are they sitting? Where's their mind at, right? What is the Trump administration thinking? Well, they made it very clear. This is a statement from Attorney General Pam Bondi's Department of Justice. I'm just going to read a little bit to you now. Department of Justice prevails in landmark antitrust case against Google. They just published this yesterday. Today, the Antitrust Division of the Department of Justice prevailed in its second monopolization case against Google in United States et al. Versus Google. The U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of Virginia held that Google violated antitrust law by monopolizing open web digital advertising markets. According to the court, Google, quote, harmed Google's publishing customers, the competitive process, and ultimately consumers of information on the open web. Okay, but where are they going to go with this? Here's a quote from Pam Bondi, the Attorney General appointed by Trump. This is a landmark victory in the ongoing fight to stop Google from monopolizing the digital public square. The Department of Justice will continue taking bold legal action to protect the American people from encroachments on free speech and free markets by tech companies, end quote. Also, the Assistant Attorney General, Abigail Slater, who was specifically part of the Antitrust Division, said, quote, the court's ruling is clear. Google is a monopolist and has abused its monopoly power. Google's unlawful dominance allows them to censor and even deplatform American voices. And at the same time, Google destroyed and hid information that exposed its illegal conduct. They did. They actually did that in both cases. Google, the court showed and decided, Google knowingly destroyed a whole bunch of evidence leading into this. Where am I at here? Today's opinion confirms Google's controlling hand over online advertising and increasingly the internet itself. I'm extraordinarily proud of the dedicated public servants whose tireless efforts led to today's decision. What does that tell us? Now, none of that makes any mention of breaking this company up, right? But the rulings and the filings by the Department of Justice are specifically asking for Google to be broken up. And they're making it very clear that they're not too happy with Google. They're going to continue taking bold legal actions. They're talking about Google's encroachments on free speech and free markets, about going after tech companies, about how Google's basically had pushed too far by increasingly controlling the internet itself. And on and on and on, and silencing of American and deplatforming of American voices. Clearly, the Attorney General and the Department of Justice under President Trump is not happy with Google, right? So are they likely to come to the table at the very last moment and say, you know what, a little slap on the wrist, a little fine, and we'll make this go away, and you don't have to get broken up, Google? It seems unlikely to me. From a political perspective, it seems to me that the Department of Justice under Trump is going to continue pushing forward with whatever is necessary in order to stop Google from censoring Americans, from being a monopolist, etc. Which means that at least in one of these cases, a breakup seems likely. Now, we already know that the idea would be to sell off Chrome or remove Chrome from Google and put it inside of another company, another foundation or organization, something. And there's also discussion around removing Android. Well, if they're talking about doing that, realistically, what we're looking at is also potentially removing Google's advertising services from the remainder of the company, which would mean potentially a decoupling of the advertising stack. So Google AdSense, Google AdWords, all that stuff, all of their publisher tools from YouTube and some of their other tools as well, and their search engine. Right. So we really may be in a scenario where we could see a Google, as we know it today, broken up into a search Google and an advertising company Google and a YouTube Google and an Android Google. And then there's Chrome, which won't even be Google. We could see massive shakeups in the potentially the months to years ahead. All of that depends on what happens at any sort of appeal, obviously. And obviously, things could change politically between now and then. But as of right now, the Trump administration is not too happy with Google, and clearly the Attorney General, she's out to make an example of Google in the big tech world. So we're gonna keep watching. We'll keep seeing what happens. This is growing increasingly interesting because this is pointing to a rather massive shakeup. My personal guess is we're going to see some sort of splintering happen, whether that means it's just Chrome separated out or the advertising company separated out. I don't know. I don't know what it's going to be. Negotiations are going to be ongoing. Judge rulings are going to be ongoing. Appeals are going to be ongoing. But it's starting to feel increasingly likely that we're going to see a splintered Google, mini Googles, little baby Googles all over the place. It's going to be interesting. We'll keep tabs on it. Thank you to the Lunduke Journal subscribers for making this coverage possible. Go to lunduke.com, click on links. If you want to become a whistleblower, there's instructions on that page as well. Lots of different ways you can subscribe, lots of different ways you can watch and listen and read everything that the Lunduke Journal puts out. And of course, as always, your support keeps all of this big tech free, ad free, non-woke, and awesome. So thank you for making it all possible. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, nerds and nerdettes across this vast and glorious intertube of ours, I do declare, end broadcast.